To think that nearly 5 years have passed since Fire Emblem Warriors became a reality, and following the game from the initial trailer up until the day of launch, myself and Max HP covered it rather extensively, being overall impressed with the final result despite the clear favoritism and usual trappings of a Musou title. Fucking piece of shit dragon! Well, after the surprise announcement of Fire Emblem Warriors Free Hopes, I figured the ideal circumstances are in place to revisit my first Switch title and examine what I consider to be the best part of every Warriors crossover, the Ensemble Cast. While the action is a spectacle with music that pops off like it's rising revengeance, my primary enjoyment stems from being able to play as a huge assortment of fan-favourite fighters, decimating an entire battlefield in the ultimate power fantasy, as well as receive supplementary flavour text to add to their resume, and the foundation set by Warriors has me stoked for Free Hopes. But in the meantime, let's inspect all 32 playable characters and rank them from my least favourite all the way to the tip top of the Fire Emblem food chain. Before we depart for the front lines, there's a couple of ground rules that must be established, since judging characters in a Musou game differs from my traditional ranking system. For example, stats and weapons aren't too big of a deal, and something I'll only bring attention to for some additional info, as I shall instead be focusing on the unit's moveset and characterization through both story integration and support dialogue. It is of the utmost importance that the character listings are entirely subjective and purely in regards to how they are portrayed in just this game. So don't think that because I like how Warriors interpret certain units, it suddenly means that my feelings are reflected across other Fire Emblem titles. Don't try and shy away from me, Your Highness. You know exactly who I'm talking about.
It can't be!
And while you're there, feel free to hit that like button and subscribe too. It really helps out the channel. Let us begin at number 32, who only scored a total of a 4 out of 10. And to no one's surprise, the first of the Lemon Twins, Rowan, has hit rock bottom. I believe it's a safe assumption that most players would prefer to forget this Fire Emblem lord existed. Heck, even intelligence systems won't let himself and his sister into heroes, for the boy resembles your stereotypical shonen protagonist and is rather annoying in his mannerisms and attitude, for the lad goes on about becoming a knight more than Felix chooses to act like a prick.
Hurry up and get out of my sight. Go find a husband. You're a rabid cur. Just looking at your face makes me want to retch.
What an asshole!
His design is an embarrassment that continually makes me wince, with a personality and character arc that are flatter than Lucina's chest, though I shall not deny that a small selection of his supports are really good, demonstrating significant growth when conversing with more mature allies like Marth, Xander, and Robin. Plus, his good nature and honest spirit do help to ease the souls of Lucina and Celica. Unfortunately, conversations that rely on small talk and general banter are where things turn sour, for Rowan is about as charming as a stale piece of bread. But when he goes into battle, there is hope for the young squire, for I found his attacks to be rather flashy, with a decent amount of coverage and combo potential. Plus, his personal weapon allows for super effective beast damage, and healing utility is always a boon. So while leaving a bitter taste in my mouth, Rowan has potential. Until he decides to open his mouth.
That actually went well.
As the saying goes, the only place left to go from here is up. For the next 3 entries all scored a 5 out of 10, as I discern these folks to be simply average, with the travelling merchant Anna coming in at number 31. Man, she has not been prospering lately if her time in Foldland is of any concern. For while I like her design and her victory animation is hilarious, Anna's characterization is incredibly standard, for she remains fun and charming with the typical money-loving mindset, and supports that are primarily about profits that rarely advocate depth and or development, with Celica and Lucina being the 2 exceptions that I thought to be very interesting and showcase how this merchant is both wise and experienced. Too bad her combat prowess is practically worthless, as while it's not unheard of for a Musou game to have in Smash terms Echo Fighters, Fire Emblem Warriors irritates me in regards to its copy-paste mentality, as my god do all the bow users feel exactly the same! And in comparison to her peers, Anna has some of the lowest figures with no ability to heal others, and her personal weapon lacks any additional properties outside of flyer damage. So unless the situation calls for it, I deem Anna to be a worthless investment. This Archer dilemma continues into numero 30 with Niles. This vagabond silver tongue is working overtime within the realm of a toe list and makes for some very entertaining and suggestive exchanges. However, playing as Niles feels so brain dead since he's the same as every other Archer, though unlike Anna, at the very least Niles does offer up healing utility. so unless I'm forced to ask for his assistance, I prefer to leave him in the shadows, though deploying him to unlock his supports might be worth the hassle depending on your preference, for I witnessed a number of conversations to cause legitimate growth regarding his judgmental attitude, Robin in particular having a very powerful discussion surrounding the idea of erasing or embracing your past, though if Spider-Man has taught us anything, it's best to lean towards the latter. To close out this branch of mediocrity, at number 29 is the second of the Lemon Twins, Princess Lyanna. Though an argument can be made for both roles to be on equal footing, given that Her Highness parallels her irritating underling with equally stereotypical personality traits, I simply prefer her archetype of being genuinely sweet and wholesome if rather basic, which I'll take over loud and obnoxious any day of the week.
That actually went well.
Lyanna's chats with her friends follow many of the same beats where she feels inadequate compared to the others and must learn to embrace her strengths rather than be envious. While undeniably repetitious, her interactions do make for solid character building, and unlike the prince, she demonstrates strong chemistry regardless of partner, and thus I found her to be far more endearing. The princess may not enjoy battle, but due to mirroring her brother's attacks and attributes, she's an undoubtedly reliable pick when need be. So while an overall weak character, Lyanna can take pride in being amiable across the board. Now for an interesting intersection, as the next entry is the only one to score a 5.5, where I felt they are ever so slightly above average yet underwhelming on the whole, and I can already sense the butthurt coming from a mile away as number 28 goes to Prince Takumi. Man, I don't know what's worse, the fact that 3 archers are so low on this totem pole, or that the game still treats them better than FE7. Given that Takumi was one of the most complex characters in Fate, it's a shame that I can't say much about his warrior's persona, as though his dialogue with Lin and Xander do a great job of helping the prince to grow and understand the flaws in his reckless behavior and inferiority complex, the remaining conversations came off as incredibly forgettable, lacking any charisma with the cast barring the latter swordsman and Oboro, and the boy's problems persist when taking up arms, for he functions the same as his peers barring his admittedly devastating super attacks and clever callbacks in them too. So though I find him generally unappealing to work with, the prince's few highlights do have significant merit. Time to jump headfirst into another 3-way tiebreaker with the 6 out of 10 score bracket, where I discern the following characters to be good but nothing more, either through the lack of exceptional dialogue or an attack set that is preferable on a different entity. And wouldn't you know that directly ahead of the second Hashidan prince is the Norian equivalent Leo. His Highness is a man I observe to be solid on all fronts, with some funny supports concerning his malfunctioning wardrobe a la Frederick, and a strong sense of quality control. Not to mention the subject matter surrounding his remarks often make for ideal topics to bond over. When taking to the front lines, himself and his little sister share the same attacks that are really fun to execute, as fast movement paired with huge coverage and some epic super attacks makes him a solid choice to go ham with. However, I always felt at least cemented his redundancy due to the lack of healing and no additional perks to his tome, so while good on all fronts, Leo fails to achieve anything more than satisfactory. Looks like it's time to take a break from continually belittling Fate, because it's not 2016 anymore. For now, it's Awakening's turn in the spotlight, and is fittingly spearheaded by its poster boy Chrom, which I'm sure will be a severe blow to his self-esteem, but the dude's been through worse. The Exalt does have the benefit of decent story integration, and a fine support selection too. I mean, the fact that Matt Mercer is talking to Matt Mercer is an automatic win, but honest to god, I found Chrom to be uncomfortably forgettable in this game, failing to stand out throughout much of the adventure, with dialogue ranging from basic to good at best, but nothing that exemplifies his strengths, though at the very least his battle prowess remains robust, as sharing the same attacks as his daughter is a little concern given how much fun it is to pull off, and the fact that his falchion comes with the benefit of dragon damage is a very useful feature, so though I'd hardly consider him a highlight, you can't go wrong with Chrom. The final entry in our 6-slot scrutiny is the first Shadow Dragon combatant to be featured here today, the OG Myrmidon Navarre. For this sellsword is in my opinion not that interesting if it supports any evidence, for I reserve the recipients to be the ones doing most of the talking, and one-sided conversations are never a fun time. There is, however, a certain irony to this state of affairs, as while Navarre remains stoic, his support partners I noticed to be portrayed fantastically during the relations, showcasing some of the best moments for each respective character, with matters that I construed to be far more interesting and intense than the norm. Plus, sharing the same fighting style as Lady Lindis is incredibly entertaining, with the benefit of a superior stat distribution compared to the latter two fighters. So despite his stubborn refusal to take some initiative, being able to inadvertently bring out the best in his comrades is commendable. Running adjacent to Takumi's situation, only one applicant was able to aggregate a score of 6.5, and I'm not surprised that no one else shares the same wavelength as number 24, the Dark Swordsman Owain. If there's one thing this lunatic has down to a science, it's how to make an entrance, for his debut cinematic is spectacular, and his attempt to explain the situation to Lissa makes for a brilliant laugh, a factor that extends to the remainder of his dialogue. However, outside of the chuckles, I found the majority of his discussions rudimentary compared to what Owain delivers in both Awakening and Fates, though this nutjob has always valued humour and theatrics over etiquette, so I can't be too surprised. Since he hasn't transitioned into Odin yet, Owain follows the way of the sword, copying the strikes of Lord Ryoma, which I like just fine, but without any supplementary qualities. Unless I wish to hear this madman scream to the heavens, Owain is someone who I feel is better suited to the barracks. It seems old habits die hard, as 3 companions now share a 7 out of 10 score, as I found the following to be genuinely enjoyable, with the number 23 placeholder Lady Hinoka just managing to be better than average. Now before you get ahead of yourselves, I do admire Hinoka's portrayal, for I perceived Her Highness to be a tad more relaxed, and pertains a strong log entry with impressive solicitations between her peers, able to resonate with them on a very personal level, which I love. How unfortunate though that listening to her ramble becomes rather jarring. Indeed, Hinoka's vocal performance remains a meme within the community, and while I wouldn't cite it as awful, she most certainly sounds off and it can be rather distracting. Plus, though she's amusing to control, Her Highness is held back on the grounds of being a PegasusKnight clone, and someone I only ever pick out of necessity, either due to the lack of special properties or simply personal bias. Don't worry Hinoka, I'm certain one day there'll be a Fire Emblem game that treats you better than Nintendo treats Smash Brothers.
Cease and desist, bitch!
Upgrading from a character the developers loathe to a cash cow they'll milk dry, the placement for number 22 is assigned to Tharja, and it seems Koei decided to pull the rug out from underneath us by giving the infamous sorceress some of the most light-hearted and silly interactions with the team. I can't help but be slightly disappointed that she failed to aggregate substantial depth, considering her client and the lengths she went to heal others on a very sensitive and emotional level in Awakening, but I do appreciate Tharja's self-aware nature regarding her popularity and reputation. Plus, that support with Camilla should be awful, and yet I am speechless when basking in its utter perfection. And thanks to a victory animation, I no longer require crest materials to awaken the power of my sword. Considering the various dark tones Tharja is privy to, I am disappointed that she became far too obsessed with Robin and copied their attacks, but fortunately her super attacks are unique and quite the spectacle, which I find to be a rather fitting analogy due to Warrior's interpretation of Tharja reflecting style over substance, but she certainly got me under her spell. They say 777 is the jackpot, and if the next applicant is any evidence, we may as well make it official, thanks to Awakening's Pegasus rep Miss Cordelia landing in at number 21. Yeah, I know Sumiya came first and I would fucking lose it if she were playable, but the Maiden of Flowers isn't nearly as profitable as her BFF, and according to Nintendo, that means you're dead to them. As expected of Little Miss Perfect, I find Cordelia to be respectable in every aspect. Good supports that have excellent quality assurance, a nice mix of light-hearted and sweet but also deep and personal conversations, a peg clone but with the benefit of fantastic stat distribution that balances power and support and very useful given her class's utility. I'll admit she's a little easy to overlook and I'm guilty of deploying her only when 100% necessary, but you can never go wrong with this pristine PegasusKnight. To quote Dr. Eggman,
time for a change of pace!
As unlike Takumi and Owain, there are 4 units who share this decimal spot, all having scored 7.5, as I find these folks to be highly respectable, if relatively unexceptional. And in a cruel twist of fate, the one who claims to be 3 steps ahead ended up 3 steps behind his peers as Robin scrapes his way into the top 20. Given their connection to the Fell Dragon, having Robin act as both a hero and villain is pretty neat, with solid story beats showcased on both sides. Plus their support chain offers up a lot of stimulating issues and ideas, though I personally found the Peerless Tactician to be the dullest part of the exchange and merely went with the flow, which I find strange given their usual charisma. During the first few months of Warrior's debut, this strategist was one of the most remarkable soldiers within the platoon, functioning as the then only playable unmounted magic user. But ever since the DLC, Robin has lost that inimitable spark a la Tharja and Lyn, but are still very fun to let loose and have some astonishing super attacks about on par with how busted magic is in Awakening. We're not done with Fire Emblem 13 just yet, as Frederick dons the 19th place medal in the service of Chrom. For though this upstart lacks much story relevance, his discussions are notably on point and really play into the man's strengths, for he's home to some of the funniest roleplays in the game and a few instances of really deep talks too. For the sheer magnitude of Xander and Frederick being on the same screen was breathtaking, and he should never be left alone with Camilla, as these two blissfully bring out the worst in each other. And I love it! When in charge of dispatching the enemy, though a little clunky for my taste as he literally throws his weight around, Frederick has the benefit of an exclusive attack pattern that's ideal for keeping up momentum and covering a large surface area. Plus, I really admire that his super attacks usher the use of his entire arsenal, and once all is said and done, not even a pebble will be able to escape his onslaught. It's common knowledge that Warriors was fairly unbalanced regarding representation, given the clear favoritism towards the 3DS titles, with Fire Emblem 7 and Gaiden only receiving a singular spokesperson, with the latter poster girl being our 18th entry Celica. While hardly on the same level of hype as Lyn, it was wonderful to have Lady Antias represent Valentia, and her characterization was an unexpected but welcome direction, for I admired that her debates made for more complex supports that touched on topics unusual for a more easygoing entry, and causing Celica to reflect on her actions and grow after being confronted about her way of thinking, particularly when engaged with Xander, Sheila, and Lyn. Almost as if the writers were apologizing for the moments and echoes that caused the fanbase to foam at the mouth. Man, I remember the days when the masses were under the assumption that Echoes was one of the best written Fire Emblem titles. Good to know we eventually took off the rose-tinted glasses. But it's better than Fate's story! Quite so, along with every other Fire Emblem narrative, which is hardly an accomplishment. I cannot refute that on occasion Celica's attitude felt a little forced concerning her disdain for war, but it's assuring to witness the young lady learn from her mistakes, and though the princess lacks an original set of attacks, following Marth's example was a wise decision, while throwing some smoking super attacks and a stat spread that is very well balanced with healing utility to boot. So questionable moments notwithstanding, I appreciate the attempt to rectify her wrongdoings, which makes me really interested to see what they do with Rhea in Free Hopes. Speaking of Marth, turns out the OG Hero King will be closing out this section with the 17th place medal, for though he was very late to the party, the prince retains the aura of kingship and royalty that allows him to fulfill the leadership role among legends with ease. Concerning his connections to his associates, I found the matters at hand to be rather standard, but Marth does have very exceptional charisma and some powerful deliberations with the likes of Xander, Minerva, and Lucina, all the while being clearly a fan of callbacks to the other games and characters because sick reference bruh! Marth's sword arm is very grandiose, with an interesting meter gimmick and some of the craziest super attacks in the game. Plus, being the Bane of Dragons is always nice, and I adore the look of his promoted form, as it truly resembles that of a king. As we continue to ascend this pedestal, we shall align ourselves with those who scored an 8 out of 10, as these warriors were prodigious to command and explore even if they didn't go above and beyond. And man was this competition fierce, for 6 candidates reside within this bracket, and coming in at number 16 is none other than Lyn. No, not that Lyn! That Lyn! God, I have the same problem with people misspelling my own name. First and foremost, I revere her transition into 3D as she looks stunning and really mature, as opposed to whatever the hell Heroes did. And despite having a small number of supports, the affairs in question were some of the best in the game, allowing her to harmonize very well with the whole cast. On the battlefield, she's a joy to deploy and an interesting semi-clone, for her standard attacks mirror Robin's, but her specials and super moves are completely original and make her feel that touch more authentic. So while light on presence, Lyn shines very brightly in the realm of Aetolis. Oh, now would you look at that? It's time to give Fates another call, as I've reserved the next 3 slots for members of its congregation, as 15th place goes to Ryoma. The Prince of Hoshida's portrayal is what you'd expect from someone of his caliber, being a strong leader regarding both story and support, often coming off as very wise and understanding, combined with prevalent moments that truly exemplify his kingship skills. Plus, due to his designation as a samurai, Ryoma comes packaged with a moveset that is very fast and frantic, which while not my personal favourite, more than gets the job done, and his true blade form looks magnificent and something I would love to see more often. Heck, why wasn't this his legendary form in Heroes? Intelligent Systems is really missing out by refusing to incorporate some of these designs into the game, and God knows they can always rely on Camilla to maximize their profit margins.
How wonderful.
Transitioning from Hoshido to Nor, Princess Elise just edges out at number 14, for this cinnamon roll has become even more adorable, and it's great that she's paired with the right set of characters to amplify her personality. Granted, her excitement can occasionally result in discussions that are all over the place, but for the most part she does a wonderful job of lightening the mood and bringing joy to some very troubled individuals. Heck, she's so cute even Oboro can't bring herself to scowl at this little baby.
I'll protect you. Yay!
Elise follows Leo's example when partaking in Rough and Tumble, but has the benefit of staff utility, which automatically makes her a better choice in my opinion, and despite being a duplicate, Her Highness's attacks are so much fun it doesn't bother me too much, plus I can never say no to this little sweetheart, and makes me wish that at some point Nina will get into Warriors, cause I will quickly succumb to cuteness overload.
That kinda defeats the point of having Nino in this game if you die as soon as she's on screen.
It's worth the risk. Besides, there are worse ways to spend your final days. In what I can only describe as mutiny, both royals were beaten out by Takumi's spear-wielding seamstress, Oboro, sneaking her way into 13th place, who despite her aversion to Norians works really well off her peers, procuring very pleasant exchanges and an overall more casual attitude, which given her lack of importance in the grand scheme of things, is an understandable approach, and gives her dialogue a sense of authenticity, though I feel her discourse lacks emotional depth. While historical relevance isn't her strong point, what she can take pride in over her fellow fighters is a set of attacks that Oboro can call her own, that while somewhat ridiculous and clunky depending on the action in question, there's a lot of style and flair going into the execution that can lead to some epic finishes and long-winded combos, so it's good to know that style is something Oboro can apply to more than just fabrics. Concerning the issue of style, points and flair, the dancer class will forever be privy to such attributes, for Olivia knows this to be true as the 12th place entry, who's just as shy and cute as ever, with supports that are extremely wholesome if relatively straightforward. As I design her conversations to lack significant growth or deep understanding, but hot damn are they wonderful! From singing and dancing with Bazora to learning about Laszlo and going all in on indulging Owain, bless her soul, she is such a sweetheart and has my favourite victory animation bar none. In fact, I'm certain she could make the entire battlefield faint from how adorable she is, and on that note, I think I'm gonna...
God, you're so fickle. This is worse than the time you discovered how creamy was a thing.
Olivia's attacks are a feat only she can accomplish that is both a spectacle to execute and offers such vast coverage that I'm sure you could clear the entire battlefield blindfolded, almost as if you're watching a ballet, which suits her dancer motif perfectly and grants me hope that my best girl in Fodland will be playable in Free Hopes. As we prepare to cap off the top 20, the number 11 prize winner goes to the first of many dragons this franchise would produce, Tiki. Like the rest of the Arcanean gang, she's fashionably late to the fight, but that can be excused on the grounds of being super cute, having such an endearing and silly attitude expected of a dragon child while not shying away from the struggles she's faced. Thanks to her age and experience, she's able to effectively connect with many characters, as her conversations are focused on her or her partner's backstory, and thanks to her overwhelming amounts of charm, each exchange never fails to delight. When deciding to play rough, Tiki functions as the most night and day unit in the whole game, as normally she has a playful but not particularly fun set of attacks that can get downright tedious to use repeatedly, but in her awakening mode, she lets loose her scales and becomes stupidly OP, smashing through armies like they're nothing and making even the strongest adversaries little more than cannon fodder, because at the end of the day, it's just math. So, 22 applicants later, and we finally made it into the top 10, with the next 4 entries all scoring 8.5 points.
5 points!
Ugh, thank God they never included him as DLC.
5 points!
Those fortunate enough to achieve this decimal are truly excellent, demonstrating remarkable characterization that amplifies their most prevalent qualities, with the best example I can think of being none other than Corinne. Calm your tits, ladies and gentlemen. I'm well aware my usual disdain for this dragon should contradict her placement. However, the devs at Koei crafted, in my opinion, the best version of Corinne to date, for they too play the hero and villain, but now take a backseat from being the center of the universe, preferring to act as a source of support and hope during dire times, which they perform wonderfully. Corinne's lack of involvement regarding decision making allows them to instead focus their efforts on relationship building, which results in some of the most personal supports in the game that tackle a variety of topics, all while allowing Corinne to both grow from the experience and be a source of inspiration for others, and just genuinely heartwarming, showcasing that under the right circumstances her attitude is ideal. I do believe it's safe to assume that the devs were rather fond of Super Smash Bros., for Corinne attacks by combining her dragon physiology into her heavier strikes, that though very momentum based and easy to lose track of, each finisher is hype as hell, and it's wonderful to see Corinne do a complete 180 under the correct supervision. Now all we need is for Roy to get the same treatment, and all will be right with the world. Corinne is not alone when one is needed to ease tensions and lift spirits, for Chrom's sister Lissa does just as good of a job, coming in at number 9. No matter the circumstances, Lucina's auntie is a barrel of laughs and so much fun, especially when reacting to the news about her offspring, and it comes as no surprise that she's quick to befriend the rest of the brigade. It is unfortunate that many of her supports lack significant substance, which I cannot help to interpret as a little shallow, considering the depths of her character demonstrated during Awakening, even more so when taking into account the people that she could have connected with. Just imagine what it would be like to talk to Marth about how her father was and have the boy question his legacy, or being able to relate to the Hoshidans regarding the loss of Emerin and Makoto. Yes, I'm fully aware that hasn't happened yet in Lissa's timeline, but the idea just prints money. Nevertheless, her fun factor and wholesome nature makes Lissa a joy to engage with, an element of her character that extends to gameplay, for the way she swings her axe is super flashy and devastating to pull off. Plus she comes with the perk of being a healer and is probably my most deployed unit throughout my entire time within Natolis, though I can't help but feel her moves to be something the likes of which Charlotte would perform.
Ta-da! This is how a lady fights!
I do regret to inform you all that as of the number 8 placeholder, we must bid farewell to Awakening, for the final character from Fire Emblem 13 is Lucina. For despite the paper-thin narrative, the future witness plays a substantial role in this opera, and her reveal to the elders of her time is a really great moment. Even after the tale has ended, her supplementary material I noticed to be very personal, with impeccable quality assurance across the board, and I appreciate her willingness to open up more than usual. From fangirling over Marth to learning how to embrace her inner child with Elise, as well as relating to Hinoka, and even being reassured and doted on by Cordelia, almost as if she were her daughter. Oh, too soon? Her playstyle is pretty cool too, with lots of aerial movement and multi-hitting attacks, though sometimes she can veer off course, and I noticed her to recoil significantly upon impact. So everything I've praised about Chrom's technique applies to his daughter, including additional dragon damage and the fact that her stat distribution is simply fantastic, proving once again that barring Sumia, Lucina is the best thing to come out of Awakening in addition to that dazzling bride outfit. My best girl from Awakening may have missed the memo, but fear not, for fate has me covered thanks to Bazora rounding out this selection with a 7th place medal, as her support and interactions really impressed me, having such a personal touch that grants additional depth, as well as the wholesome moments bringing a tear to my eye. I already touched on her duet with Olivia, but the way herself and Xander grow closer together, and how she's able to enjoy her time as part of the family with Corinne is very touching. Heck, she's even able to understand Marth's fear of the nighttime sky, all of which is brilliant, but her routine on the front lines deserves an encore too, having a wonderful mix of physical and magic attacks that cover a huge area while also stretching her vocal cords during her super moves, and somehow being able to change her outfit on the fly. Her personal weapon has the advantage of monster damage, and in my opinion, Azura conjugates the best attack set of all the spear wielders, and once again proof why she's my best girl in Fates. Now we shall proceed on to the big leagues, people, as the next 2 contestants both scored a 9 out of 10, being what I believe to be seamless representations of their respective characters and some of the most enchanting faces in the game, starting with the Alibian representative Lindis taking 6th place. This woman deserves a Medal of Honor for reigniting people's interest after opinions went south regarding the initial roster reveal, and my god did she deliver, for the Lady of the Plains has the best combos in the game that are super fast and flashy, with finishes that cover such a wide area just about everyone will be swept away. Plus her Soul Kati is actually useful for once, so when it comes to gameplay, Lyn is my go-to pick, and her relationships are equally outstanding, being kind and caring but stern when need be, and very understanding. I did notice many of her supports to be rather on the nose regarding callbacks and self-referential humour, but they do make for a fun time. Plus, Lynn is frequently able to relate to her companions, and no surprise as to why she got picked as the one to represent the Game Boy Advance era, because it's amazing what people will do for you when you've got the legs of a goddess. With only 5 candidates remaining, having the last of the Pegasus trio and the first one to be conceived in such a prestigious position is only natural, as Princess Sheila once again upstages her husband. For late drawing time aside, the Princess of Talis now reflects the aura of a queen, providing such levity to her fellow cohorts and an enriching presence with substantial wisdom and thoughtfulness, while remaining the kind-hearted angel that we all know and love. Within Warriors, Sheila supports focus on allure as opposed to intensity, but the valor she shares with her friends is excellent, Camilla in particular making for her best discussion that clicks on every level. Were it not for her only major downside being a Pegasus Knight, and therefore sharing the same battle properties as her sisters in arms, she could have easily made it into the top 3. But to her credit, her personal weapon is busted, and the benefit of healing is always appreciated. Marth, dear boy, you are very lucky to have this woman in your life, in your heart, and handling your sword. There's only 4 slots left to fill, and the next 3 participants all share a score of 9.5, being as close to perfect as possible, with such brilliant writing that makes me wish these were their canonical versions, starting with the last of the Hoshidan royals, Lady Sakura. For this princess has...
Oh my god, he's actually going to talk about Sakura! Fucking finally!
Sakura's here! Best girl is here! This is finally happening! Oh my god, yes!
He's finally doing it! You must be joking.
Sakura! Yeah! Who's Sakura?
He's doing it! He's doing it, folks! He's gonna talk about Sakura! Oh my god, he's gonna talk about Sakura! I can't believe this!
Let's fucking go! Let's go!
Okay. Yes, for those not in the loop, during the Fates-a-thon, I completely ignored Sakura since to me, she came off as painfully average and thus I never felt the need to discuss her at length. Well, Koei decided to pull another Corinne and elevate this cherry blossom into the S tier. Although she remains shy and frail, I quickly noticed her to become far more active when stepping up to the plate or engaging in conversation, feeling like she's matured due to her current predicament of being in a new world with even more awe-inspiring peers, something her supports demonstrate wonderfully, for Her Highness is eager to encourage and reassure her friends while manifesting her own personal growth. I seriously can't get over how much of a glow-up Sakura has received, for her moveset is what holds her back, as she has the typical archer loadout and an overall poor stat pool. But the ability to heal allies is quite the boon, so while she's gone under my radar for over half a decade, it's great to finally express my love for Lady Sakura within the world of Warriors. The bronze medal goes to none other than the High Prince and eventual King of Nor, Xander. Now, His Highness is one of my favourite characters in Fates if we disregard Birthright, and his intro cutscene cements the man's status as an absolute boss, and plays the role of authority figure during both story and supports with the utmost diligence, often acting as the biggest source of contention when it comes to how characters perceive things, but also quick to understand and relate to them. I also detected Xander to act in a much more open manner about his past and general feelings, for donning a more casual demeanour makes sense given that he does not have to worry about the immediate war back home, almost like this is the first time he has an actual break and can simply fight and live alongside both families and various heroes of legend, with himself taking the reins as one of my ideal combatants thanks to an extremely fun flurry of attacks that look so cool. Plus, for a mounted unit, he controls really well compared to the rest of the cast, with a nasty habit of letting their momentum get the best of them, so it's good to know the Crown Prince remains composed at all times and more than worthy to become king. Our second place silver medalist is the final Arcanine affiliate and one of 2 Wyvern riders, Princess Minerva. This woman has remained a highlight in every game fortunate enough to feature the Red Dragoon, and Koei assured that she remained every bit as immaculate as the legacy she sustains, for not only does she look and sound outright amazing despite having the same voice actress as Hinoka, yeah, I don't get it either, but every word she utters amounts to truly jaw-dropping interactions. In fact, she may host my favourite support chain out of the whole ensemble, for her conversations show considerable backstory and growth, while emitting such a powerful presence and on occasion resonating very deeply with select individuals. Plus, she's not afraid to touch on some difficult moral questions. This Wyvern Rider's ferocity is more than just verbal, as though she's borrowing from Camilla's inputs, these three entities have shown duplication to not be a detriment, since the actions are so gratifying to execute and that dash attack is stupidly overpowered. Sure, if you wish to get technical, the fact that she's able to use magic is a load of bullshit, but honestly, who cares? Everything about Minerva is an automatic yes and proof that the Red Dragoon will forever embody all that makes Fire Emblem so spectacular. So yeah, the process of elimination has narrowed down the winner to none other than Lady Camilla, which is hardly a surprise given my not so subtle admiration for this woman, as I seriously can't get enough of how stacked she is.
Are you referring to her stats or the size of her tits?
Yes. Truth be told, were Camilla's portrayal to be on par with her Fate incarnation, I would have relegated her to around the top 10 bracket at best, but Warriors went plus ultra and beyond by making Camilla better than what Fates had to offer. As much as I love the Norian princess and feel she gets a bad rep, Fates didn't exactly do the best job at disproving the notion that she's one note or nothing but fan service. Thankfully, Warriors once again plays to the strengths of its hosts by focusing considerably on her doting yet dangerous traits, placing significant emphasis on how she cares about everyone instead of being Corinne-centric, while additionally making her obsessive nature both hilarious and also scary depending on the situation, granting her supplementary depth by acknowledging both extremes. Her supports are incredibly diverse, ranging from super sweet when bonding with Sakura, really funny a la Frederick and Faja, rather personal after chatting with Sheila, and even at her weakest, this dear lady emanates such allure that is downright intoxicating. As mentioned with Minerva, Camilla's moves pack such destructive force, and I love how the combos mix in the use of axe, wyvern, and magic attacks, paired with her sadistic laugh, which adds to the sheer delight of ripping these fools to pieces. Top that off with an amazing promotion outfit, taking jabs at her association with fan service, and the first unit in my barrack to pass the level 100 threshold. It's no wonder why Camilla is my favourite part of the game, and thanks to the blessings of Atolis, has become not just a queen, but a goddess, which is why she takes the #1 spot as my favourite character in Fire Emblem Warriors. This has been BlazingKnight. I wish you all a great night, take care, and I'm so glad that while not perfect, KoeiTecmo outdid themselves where it counts, and let some of the most beloved Fire Emblem faces be not only at their best, but better than ever. And if they can do the same for the heroes of Fodlan, then the devs deserve to go down as the real Fire Emblem heroes. Thank you all for watching today. I hope you had a great time and enjoyed the video. Please let me know what you thought in the comments, and how would you rank the entire cast of Fire Emblem Warriors? And please let me know your thoughts about Fire Emblem Three Hopes based on what we've seen so far. I'd like to say a very special thank you to all the voice actors who helped out in this video. You all did such a fantastic job, so big thank you to Digital Dreams, Maggie Fall, Starship 9, Comrio, Fahrenheit 8392, and Midnight Castle. You were all so fantastic. Thank you all so ever so much. Please be sure to give this video a like and subscribe too, and don't forget to follow me on Twitter, Discord, and Amino, Twitch where I live stream 6 times a week, and I would very much appreciate it if you donated to my Patreon to help make these videos possible and receive some additional bonuses for doing so. And of course, I'd like to say an absolutely massive thank you to all my patrons who help make these videos possible and just have kept supporting me all this time. Thank you all so much. Again, sorry about the fact that some of these videos, especially like the Nintendo one and this one, are kind of just spontaneous, despite the fact I've got other projects in the works, but you all know the situation with that. But just seriously, thank you all so much for the help, whether it's just help with feedback, positive reinforcement, recording, and yeah, you all did such a wonderful job. Each and every one of you are so amazing. I really do love you all so much. And I'd like to say a very special thank you to Wolffox, Shadow Dragon, Lucina21, K-Dog, Degenerate Peach, Chaos Sableye, VC Videos 100, Midnight Castle, Maggie Fall, Jeremy Redinger, Fahrenheit 392, Daniel Hodgson, Twisted Scarecrow, and Zenny Dragon. Thank you all so much. I love you all. Thank you. Anyway, that's it from me. I'll see you all next time.